Okay. Okay. So do you want to start the meeting or you want me to?
Ah, mhm. Mhm.
Sì. Sì, do you want me to start or do you want
Yes, if you want, if you want to start. If not, I will do it.
No, as you wish.
Okay. So I'm very glad to open this meeting of our weekly department seminar, and this time more quiet than the last weeks, 2 weeks or three. I hope, hopefully, uh, we will have better days now in Israel. So I'm very happy to introduce our guest lecturers today, Domagoj Akrap and Daniela Schmid. So Domagoj Akrap is a Jewish studies specialist and curator. He finished his doctorate in Jewish and Slavic studies at the University of Vienna in 2004. He's a librarian and since 2017 curator at the Jewish Museum in Vienna. Akrap is a lecturer in the University of Vienna, the Department of Jewish Studies. He wrote several papers on Jewish thinkers, including a monograph Erich Fromm, ein jüdischer Denker in 2011, and his research focuses on Jewish spiritual and cultural history, particularly Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, Jewish thought, especially 20th century history of Jewish books and Hebrew printing. Daniela Schmid studied art history, Slavic studies, and Jewish studies at the universities of Vienna and Krakow. She wrote her doctorate on Jewish amulets from Eastern Europe. Since 2023, she is an archivist at the Jewish Museum Vienna. After working for an international auction house as a restitution researcher, a private Judaica collection in Vienna, and a law firm focusing on Central and Eastern Europe. Her current research interests are linked between Renaissance iconography and Judaica. And the title of their paper today is God Reflections Between Heaven and Earth, an exhibition at the Jewish Museum Vienna, the first Jewish museum in the world. So, Akrap, Domagoj and Daniela, I'm sorry. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So,
Yes, looks good.
so,
So thank you very much for inviting us. Especially a big thank you goes to Monica Czekanowska, who made this possible, and to you, Zvi, for organizing everything. And Domagoj and I will give you a short introduction of the concept of an exhibition which we created together for the Jewish Museum Vienna. It's currently on view in Vienna, so we are happy to invite you to come and visit if somehow possible. And we will run you through, in a way, through the rooms, through the exhibitions, and you will see some exhibition views as well. It's very important to point out that this is also our anniversary exhibition. It's the 130th anniversary as the first Jewish museum in the world, which was founded in 1893 in Vienna and opened in 1895. So one of our goals in creating a concept for this rather difficult question and topic was also to incorporate as many Judaica objects as possible from our historically quite important collection. The topic actually was brought to us by our head curator, Hannes Sulzenbacher, And Domagoj and I looked into possibilities to exhibit this rather abstract phenomenon of God in Judaism. And we are the first European Jewish museum who dared to touch on this endeavor. But there was one exhibition on the phenomenon of God in 2006 at the Israel Museum, Jerusalem, as I'm sure you all know.
Yes. So I would say let's start and have a look, just a selection of some rooms from the exhibition, some views from the exhibition. I would like to start to say a few words about the design, exhibition design, the architecture. As you may easily see, the walls are in different kinds of blue, in bluish color. And you see layer of bricks beneath the walls at the side. This is behind this is the idea of our architectural team that the bricks as earth symbolizes earth material, building material. Of course, the idea of Borei Olam and God as a builder is what inspired them for this. So we have in all rooms except for one room, the prologue room, we will soon say a few words. We have these bricks as one of the design elements for the earth. And opposing to this, the bluish, gray blue colors of the walls in the exhibition that stand for heaven, for the transcendent, for the spiritual. So here we see a kind of a dialogue between the material and the spiritual. The dialogue will be is one of the pillars of the exhibition concept, and we will say other elements and where we work in this dialogical form. But here for the exhibition design, it's this one. So actually, the design reflects the subtitle of the exhibition, Reflections Between Heaven and Earth. That this was we can see on these different views from the exhibition. And by the way, there was also a practical use for this, as we are always afraid to have exhibitions without seating possibilities, especially for elder visitors. These bricks are ideal also to take a seat and to enjoy watching the objects. So
this is our prologue room. It's a bit different to the other rooms you're gonna see in the presentation. It's rather dark, and what you can't hear is when you enter the room, there is a sound. And it's darker, so we play a lot with the senses, and the sound we play is outer space, because this is one of the first questions and actually one of the pillars we're going to introduce you to within the exhibition's concept, and it's the dialogue between religion and science. So what was first? The Torah scroll, and we used an artwork by Eli Petel or Eliyahu Fatal to not exhibit an actual Torah scroll or science per se, and this is the reason why we have chosen outer space. In general, we worked with questions, and we will come back to that, but there is no final answer. So we give possibilities, foods for thought, but it's on the visitor, it's on the audience to have his own opinion.
Yes. So there are only two objects in this prologue room that's actually separated from the exhibition tour. It's a separate room that should bring you in the mood for the exhibition. It's a work by an Israeli-Romanian artist, Belu Simeon Fainaro. I suppose some of you are familiar with the name. If the word Aleph, actually a chicken egg, and we put it here in the prologue because of the famous saying, what was first, the chicken or the egg? So the question of beginning, it was also, it's addressed here in this room. That's why we have the space sound. That's why we have this egg. By the way, the text written on it is the Bereshit, the beginning of the Torah on the text. For the artist himself, a very important fact is also that the egg is, of course, hollow and fragile, and he connects it also to the fragility of the world and this problem that we have actually daily problems in the world with ecological crisis and other things. And the other object.
It's the Torah scroll by Eliyahu Fatal I already mentioned. And there is also a quotation on the wall in this room, and it plays with this idea in Jewish tradition that God looked in the Torah and the blueprint for the whole creation was already there. And this is also what triggered that we have chosen the egg by Belu. So the Torah scroll by Eliyahu Fatal is very important because in a way it represents the material essence of God on earth. It's the most holy object we have, but we wanted to exhibit an artwork. And we've chosen this particular one also because of the beautiful colors. So the colors you can see here on the scroll, it's a light box. It's rather bright and it shines beautifully in this dark room. The colors also might refer to God's attributes. And this is something that is referenced in Kabbalistic writings, but also in Jewish tradition. And we also know that God apparently wrapped himself in a garment of light, and it had the colors of the rainbow. And this is one of the messages we want to convey with this artwork.
So, starting, so to speak, the proper tour through the exhibition is with the introductory room, the first room, from the darkest room to the brightest room, so to speak. What we see here are 10 quotes on God from different Jewish sources from the early medieval times until nowadays. Quotes from religious sources, mystical sources, Kabbalah, philosophy, literature, science, and just to show the broad actually aspects and the different ways how God is perceived by some authorities and some people in Judaism. And I would like to say here on this spot here that when we started, so our way to approach the phenomenon of God was by asking questions. I remember Abraham Joshua Heschel once said, questioning is the beginning of all thinking. So we just said, let's try to get closer to this and to disclose this matter by asking questions. So the exhibition tour it consists of 7 chapters, 7 questions. The questions sound rather simple, as we will see later, like what is God's name? Questions actually a kid would maybe ask. Of course, the answers are everything but simple. And actually, we, as Daniela mentioned, we will not give any answers. We try just to show how Jews coped with this and tried to find a solution to this answer. And so we have 7 questions, and we will have 72 objects in the exhibition. It's, of course, actually, it was by chance. I was happy to have 72, but it's, of course, 72 is one of the 72 part name of God. So we didn't try to get to the 72, but at the end, it turns out that we have 72. So pretty lucky, pretty happy glad to have it. Yeah. Do you want to say something about the dialogue, the next dialogue step? Yeah.
So there are several dialogue pillars in the exhibition, and the first one we already mentioned is the dialogue between religion and science. So, for example, we also consider questions like AI or neuroscience. The second dialogue pillar is between Judaica, so Jewish ritual art, and modern and contemporary art. And the third and maybe probably most important pillar is between God and man, or the audience and the exhibition, or the objects. And especially when we deal with an abstract phenomenon, something you can't see, you're maybe not even allowed to really imagine, you can't pronounce its innermost name, you create a lot of projections, expectations, but they might also be followed by disappointments from both sides. So emotions and triggers, emotional triggers play a very important role throughout the exhibition, as well as the senses, as we will see. So this would be the first chapter, the first question. What is God's name? We won't go into any details what that might mean in Judaism. You're all familiar with that. And I will briefly talk about the Torah finials you can see on the left-hand side. They are on loan from New York. So this is really an exception because about 99% of the Judaica objects come from our own collection and really from the collection of the first Jewish museum in Vienna. But we have chosen these particular rimonim because of various reasons. And the most important one, that in the Caucasus region on the Torah finials, on some of these objects, you have inscribed the 42 letter name of God, and that's the case with these beautiful objects. The second reason was that they stem from Tbilisi, so from Georgia. And in Vienna, we have quite a rather thriving Jewish community coming from Georgia. So that was also important in considering a possible audience. And a rather beautifully, coincidence was that they are made in 1895 in Georgia, but it's the very year the first Jewish museum opened. A fourth reason I only encountered when the rimonim were installed here in Vienna, although I've seen them before in New York, but they've been displayed differently. When I looked into the inscription, is that there is also a quote from Pirkei Avot about the three crowns in Judaism. So the crown of the Torah, kingdom, and priesthood. But the fourth crown is the most important one, and it's the crown of Shem Tov. And I really like this concept. It's again about the dialogue between God and man.
Yes, opposing this religious object, the Judaica object, is a print from Moshe Gershuni, basically untitled, but it has a quote has been said to set his name there. A quote from Dvarim, actually, from Deuteronomy, where it is said in the context of the Passover and other sacrifices. So there, I will set his name there. There means Jerusalem in the context of the Torah. And Gershuni, with this painting, he puts the question of God in the context of the Holocaust, as we can see on the upper right side at the yellow, let's say yellow, could be a sun or so, but we see a part of a swastika entering this yellow surface. So, of course, there is the question also. It's on one side, it's a play with Shem Sham that is written the same way in Hebrew, Shem as the name of God, the name, Hashem, and Sham for there. And on the other side, the word Sham in the context of the Holocaust, the people, the inmates of the concentration camps meant when they send you there, Sham, actually they send you to the gas chambers to death. So this is a reference to questioning God, the presence of God's name within the Holocaust context. Another contemporary artist, Peter Daniel from Austria, has a pretty sophisticated work, The Broken Aleph or The Unbroken Silence. So Aleph is, of course, also connoting one hidden name of God in the Kabbalah. It's the first letter, a letter contrary to Aleph, actually a letter we can't hear. It's here, but you cannot hear it. So it exists, but you can't hear it. And this Aleph consists of two Yuds and one Vav. And it sums up, when we translate that into numbers, it sums up 26, the same number as the Shema Meforash Yud Hei Vav Hei. So we see a play that actually the name, the presence of God is within. It's not, you can't hear it, it's here and not here. So a bit a play with the ineffability and of the name of God with this Aleph. So
we also collaborated with Saris Rulovic from Jerusalem, and this is one of the stations where we encounter a sense. It's the sense of touch, because it's also called the touching mezuzah. And we created a dummy in a wooden box next to this mezuzah, so our audience can actually feel this, like the fingerprints of the shin for the name of God Shaddai written on the mezuzot, and in a way it also imitates the reverence which is given to mezuzot by kissing or by touching them. On the right side, you see one of the 5 comparative objects we have chosen to exhibit in our show. And this is quite a telling one. It's a Baroque eye of God. It was probably used in a Catholic church for an altar. So it was formerly part of an altar. But what's significant for us is that within the triangle in the middle, we see the tetragram chromaton. So this is something that's quite extraordinary, because although Christianity and Judaism share the symbolism of God through the rays of light and the clouds, the triangle is quite special and actually more reserved for a Christian context, but we will learn in a few minutes that that might not necessarily be the case 100%, but it's the name of God that is actually the only positive reference to Judaism in Christian material culture. And this is something we really wanted to convey to our visitors, and it's in a direct line to the next object
in the next chapter.
in the next chapter. So we work a lot with lines of the gaze, and you can see here a Torah, a shield from our own collection, and in the upper part again you will find the triangle. The triangle is something that in Christianity refers to the Trinity, that of course does not apply to Judaism. But it's very important to point out that about 90% of Judaica objects in continental and Eastern Europe were made by Christian silversmiths. And that's definitely the case with this tass. You can see from how the clouds, how everything is arranged, even the lion is actually referring back to the Agnus Dei lamp in Christianity. What's quite telling is that in the triangle on this tass, you don't have the name of God, you have a letter combination. Up until a few weeks ago, I thought that it would be impossible in a Jewish context that the actual I, the combination of triangle and I, is included on a ritual object. I was told wrong because I did some research online and I found a tass, I think it's probably by the same silversmith, in the collection of the Jewish Museum Budapest, and it has the same triangle, but there is an actual eye displayed there. So that's quite extraordinary.
Yes, so direct reference to the quote for this chapter, how does God manifest himself, actually from Schmid, but you cannot see my face, for a human being may not see me and live, is the painting by R.B. Kitai, My Third Jewish Abstract, or God's Back. The painting is inspired by Matisse's painting Le Violoniste à la Fenêtre. Actually, he took the back from the violin player, musician here for as a shape for God's back. With a significant change, he left the God's back in white. It uses the white color, standing for emptiness, invisibility, or the inexpressible. He himself, maybe you know, Kitai described himself as a deeply religious non-believer. But actually it's interesting. Abstract art, of course, helps is pretty useful, so to speak, because of the iconoclasm and the for the no the for ban on images. Thank you. Ban on images in Judaism, so you can express this in an abstract way. This situation that Moses had in the Exodus, Shemot 33, chapter 33. So we are moving on to the third question: where does God live? So.
I think it's also important to mention that the rooms, so those of you who have not been to the Jewish Museum Vienna yet, the rooms are open. So there are many cross-references between also the objects, because one of the main challenges was to assign an object to one particular question. Yeah. And now we have reached room number 3 or question 3. And we will show you just briefly the central temple building from the Baroque model of Solomon's temple. It comes from the City Museum in Hamburg. It's only the innermost part. It's a huge Baroque late 17th century wooden model. The whole model has 20 square meters. We could, of course, not exhibit the whole model, but we were lucky to get the innermost part as a loan. And for us, it was important, first of all, of course, to explain the importance of the temple and what it meant when it was destroyed with setting in of the diaspora. But it also clearly shows, first of all, it comes from a Catholic environment. It's a double basilica. It's based on the vision of a prophet Ezekiel on an etching from 1605 by a Spanish Jesuit. And it was made for the Hamburg Opera building, but it later on, 1 century later, it entered the Dresdner Zwinger, where it was part of a collection, a humanist collection, which also included Judaica or a Judenkabinet. But it was clearly there because I looked into the collection as a whole. There was also a synagogue, etc. The temple model was used to legitimate the position of the ruler. Yeah, it's the ideal model of the world, like the Torah, like could be the Constitution, and this is what clearly was the meaning behind collecting such a really breathtakingly beautiful object. When you look inside, you can see it's gilded, it's golden, because we play quite often with these ideas of the rays of light as a symbol for God, an iconography for God. Also, the question of Judaica is normally made of silver, but we know that for the temple, there was actually the idea that the temple implements are made of gold, and also the innermost part of the temple is gold. So when you look inside, this is up until the last door before you would enter the innermost part, and you can't open this door because we tried with our restorers. And what we exhibited in front of the model is the little gilded temple implements, like the menorah, etc. You know, all these little beautiful details. Also important, of course, to point out that God lived, he lives where his name is floating between the cherubim above the covenant, Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. So juxtaposed here, this is just an image for a short film we are showing, done by a neuroscientist Andrew Newberg, showing the brain changes during prayer and meditation. Actually, we are here asking, where does God live? And the neurotheology links the biological and spiritual. It helps to deepen our understanding on this topic. And the experiments, the studies showed the difference between, for example, secular people reciting the Shema Israel and an Orthodox rabbi citing it. There was a significant difference in the brain activity. So why in this chapter we are asking the question, maybe actually God, the phenomena of God is something that takes place also within our brain, as the phenomenon reflects different results in different persons. Of course, here in this context, the question of measuring comes up also, because these are things that we can measure in medicine. So we see the changes that happen during meditation or during reciting certain prayers at brains of some persons, of religious persons, and not. So that brings us back to our beginning, where Daniela also mentioned that the dialogue between religion and science, we always try to incorporate this and to so.
Another place where one might be able to find God might be not in the amulet holder, but it's a reverence to Torah arcs in Eastern European wooden synagogues. This is a really exceptional object. It comes from the collection of the First Jewish Museum. It's a riddle. I really, really love it. So there are many layers of interpretation. It entered the collection in 1905 as a mezuzah, but we did some research, also the former chief curator, Felicitas Heimann-Jelinek, and in the end, if you look really closely, there are blue glass bells in the upper part, below this strange disc held by a lion, maybe it's Helios disc, but this blue, the color blue, refers to amulets used in the Carpathian region and also, of course, on the Balkans, etc., against the evil eye. Unfortunately, the parchment, which was probably inside this little shrine or reference to the Torah ark, is lost, but it has this various layers of rising up. It has the crown on top as a reference to the Torah, to Keter Torah. There are many animals, also chimeras of fantasy animals. We don't know all the meanings. You have in front, you have a beautiful tree of life with a bird on top. It's going back to Renaissance prints from northern Italy, etc. So again, it also references the creation of God, and if you look at it, it's of an extremely high quality. So it's really like to be considered like a Kunstkammer object.
Yes. On the opposite side is a work by a famous artist, Anselm Kiefer, a German artist who is very much into studying Kabbalah since, I would say, like since the 80s. So for several decades already. Merkabah, the seven heavenly palaces. Of course, the heaven is one of the traditional dwelling places of God's presence from the Bible on. Of course, the Merkabah is a reference to early Jewish mysticism and the works on getting to through the different chalots to the different heavens, seven heavens, actually, to get in front of the divine chariot, the Merkabah. Yes, so I would say we could move on to
time.
Yeah. What does God do? Yes, another 20th century artist, Robert Motherwell. We mentioned abstract art as that is a very good way to express and to deal with the divine and with these questions. Tablets of Moses, Jacob's Ladder, and the Burning Bush. This was actually a drawing. Motherwell was commissioned to do a mural for a synagogue in New Jersey. And this is one of the sketches he prepared for this. Maybe just to mention, so tablets of the law. And of course, a burning bush is clear. It means it's the revelation on Mount Sinai. So God as the lawgiver. For you familiar with Judaism, of course, even the Jacob's Ladder is not odd here. But for me, it was first like, what is the Jacob's Ladder doing between two elements that are connected with the revelation on Sinai? But of course, the Sulam of Yaakov Sulam and Sinai have the same number amount the same number when we turn it into numbers. So actually the Jacob's dream, where he dreamt of the ladder rising up to heaven, is like actually a prophecy before the prophecy of what prophetic vision of the event on Mount Sinai.
Maybe we stick one more second with the mother well, because we've also chosen the mother well to have one representative of abstract expressionism, because as we did also some digging into neuroscience, we of course came across Eric Kandel, the famous scholar with Viennese roots, and he actually says that based on the Viennese School of Art History, it's the viewer who completes abstract art, especially if you think of artists like Rothko, etc. And it's quite similar what is triggered in the frontal lobes between praying and looking at art. And this triangle of science, art, and religion was something we also wanted to point out. On the left-hand side, you see a way more traditional object. It's from a Haggadah by Aaron Wolf Herrlingen. So he's a quite famous representative of the so-called Bohemian Moravian school of Jewish illustrated manuscripts and artists. He was a fabulous scribe. He's documented as a scribe at the Habsburg court during the reign of Maria Theresia. What you can see here is the giving of the law, of the tablets of the law on Mount Sinai. And you have the people of Israel standing in front. And what you can see here, and something that you can only see in Jewish iconography and Jewish art, there's a little fence running around Mount Sinai. So actually that there is some kind of barrier between the holiest and the people of Israel. But so far, we only have encountered God as a creator, as a lawgiver, and as a protector. Very positive emotions or ideas, just to keep in mind for later on.
Yeah, just maybe because of to say in the exhibition. So you see, we have a contemporary artwork and a traditional object in Haggadah, and there is also a third one referring to the revelation, to the giving of the law. Actually, a sequence from the Schoenberg opera Moses and Aaron, also dealing with the revelation and actually the calling scene from Moses. So these three. So we have music, contemporary art, and let's say religious or traditional objects. Ronen Tanchum, artificial wild dream. Yes, of course, the idea of creating artificial man or creating worlds actually is quite old, and we know already Talmudic stories about this. And that actually it's said that man could create a world would there be no sins. So actually the sins are that what separates us from God, from the divine. And so we, of course, wanted to address the question of AI also in this context. And here we see actually, as the computer machine generates a world of memories that it has never physically experienced, and somehow kind of a rebirth affected by the artificial intelligence in imitating the creation happens here. So we can say it's kind of a new second creation behaving like a reflection to the original creation, but of course flawed and with sometimes bizarre outcomes. So in the movie is like 50 minutes, we see like fishes with parrots' heads and so on. So it's of course not a perfect creation, but this question of man trying to, I would say, play God or be the creator is addressed here. So how is God perceived?
So in the very same room, we deal with a second question. And here we can see rage, anger. So God's negative emotions in a way that makes them also quite human, because it's always a projection and going back and forth. And we've chosen this painting by Lessa Uri, The Flood, because it shows the naked man clinging on even with the fingernails to the stones, but they're gonna be destroyed because several generations after the creation, God destroys everything except for Noah and his family and the animals. And what we wanted to convey with this big, rather strong painting by the Berlin secessionist is this existential threat. So what does it mean for us as an individual to be in this world, not knowing what's going on, what's happening next, etc.? And this is a question, a very individualistic one, that will follow us also through the exhibition. In this chapter, we also deal with positive emotions, especially the emotion of love, which also can convey an erotic element. And you can see here a mystical ketubah for Shavuot. It's from our collection. It even has the name of the scribe written on on the lower part. And it's a concept that is, I don't need to explain to you the concept of a ketubah, but it's really the marriage between God and Israel, and the witnesses are heaven and earth. So I think it's also quite necessary to always consider the importance of the creation and the importance of nature. The text itself is based again on a vision by a mystic coming from the Sephardic tradition, going back to the late, I think, 17th century, to a place which is today part of Bulgaria. And these ketubot, this mystical ketubot for Shavuot, originate from the Sephardic traditions in Italy and North Africa. You hardly find any from an Ashkenazi context.
Yes, and a similar situation in contemporary art is shown with Belus Simeon Fenaros Nuptial's image of God. The background for this is, of course, the concept of the Lurianic Kabbalah also, that the world, the divine world is out of balance, and that the female part, the Shekhinah, is actually separated from God. And uniting God with his bride, with the Shekhinah, is an important part of the tikkun. And so in Sephardic prayer books, we also have the prayer L'Shem Yechud, Kodesh Baruch Hu im Shechinato. And this is reflected here with this garment, with this bridal gown. And actually in the womb of it is a figure, kind of a figure of man, but this figure consists of the letters Yud, He, Vav, He. So, of course, this is referring to the notion of Tzelem Elohim, what we see. And why is it here? Because this unification, the divine union, is reflected actually in marriage and in the on earth, in the unison of the couple, of a marriage couple. That's why we use this bridal garment here, and of course the notion of God as created in the image of man. God created man in his image. So, the sixth question, how can we reach God? Yes, so another lovely object from the old Jewish museum and from our collection are the takanot from the circle around Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, a Kabbalist from the first half of the 18th century from Italy. He, after Magid visited him, he started a mystical circle. And these are the rules, the code of conduct describing how to behave and the seating order, and of course also the order of prayers. And one of the main task for the Brotherhood, for this his circle, was actually to pray for the unification of God with his Shekhinah. So trying to get closer to God through this prayer and through the unification of God and Shekhinah. So it also reflects a bit the artwork I mentioned before.
There is also a female aspect. It's a female Ashkenazi ritual from Eastern Europe, so-called the Feldmesserinnen. And it's a ritual where you go to the cemetery and a woman will measure the grave of important ancestors or maybe of the whole walls around the cemetery. And with this cotton thread, there's going to be made a wick for candles. And in a way, it's a way of prolonging your thread of life. And by lighting the candles and in a way contemplating this cotton thread, you ask the deceased to intervene for you by God. So this especially was practiced when a child fell ill. So it was only an emergency ritual in a way. A little side note, but quite important for our anniversary exhibition is you can see that the photograph comes from an article published by Samuel Weissenberg. He was the first one doing a rather scholarly study on this phenomenon, and he's also an important lender for the first Jewish museum.
So actually Kabbalah and the Ilanot are of course one way to get closer to God. So we have here a facsimile from a famous Ilan from the Bayerische Staatsbibliothek in Munich. Most of the Ilanot are not that richly illustrated. We have also in the exhibition one from our collection, from the first Jewish museum, a fragment of an Ilan. Of course, by studying the structure, the complex structure of the divine, it's also a way to get closer to God and to experience the divine. So just for notion here, the king, actually the image of Adam Kadmon, you see up there the head and the crown. This is modeled after the Habsburg emperor from the time when it was written, 1691. So it's Leopold I, a famous, for many things, famous Austrian emperor. So and there are several portraits of him, and it's really, we can see that the artist had the emperor in mind when he created the image of the Keter, of the head of the Adam Kadmon on this Ilan. So,
because of the progress of the time, I think we will skip over this object. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes. So the last chapter, why God? So why do we do all this?
There's of course a positive affirmative answer, and it's the hope for the redemption. And this is symbolized in the Parochet on the left-hand side. It comes from the Jewish community of Venice. It was made by a woman from Perugia in 1675, and we've chosen it because in a way it illustrates the whole of Jewish history, with starting with the giving of the law, and in the lower part you can see heavenly Jerusalem. So this is something we are waiting for, and in between you have beautiful Baroque nature, etc. Of course, in Italy it was highly influenced, also Jewish art by the surroundings. Think of all these amazing Italian ketubot, but it's really an outstanding textile, I would say, and it's one of the key objects in the exhibition. Again, something that might have been also used in the chapter of the question of how does God appear, because again, we have the rays of light, and there is a quote in Hebrew above the tablets of the law saying, and this is the law written by the finger of God. So again, it's pointing to a body part of the divine.
Yes. So in this chapter, in the last question, why God, of course, we are addressing also the doubts that people had on the God, existence of God, the struggle with God and all this, mostly through movies. But there is another object that I like a lot from Helene Ailon, Genesis highlighted, actually from her series, The Liberation of God. I call it a critical affirmative approach. What she tries actually with her so-called God project is to explore how her Jewish identity, and she wants, as she says, to liberate God of ungodly uh, inscriptions that she traces back to patriarchal traditions. And she used the transparent paper, put it over the Hebrew and English Torah texts, and with a pink marker, she marked out all the sentences that are violent, misogynic, sexist, anti-female, and so. And I think this is interesting. She used, of course, a transparent paper, so she didn't want to cross out actually the name of God or the text, the sacred text. It's like a folio that is put on the text and the name of God. So, and she's asking, when will God actually finally be rescued from ungodly projections in order to really be God? So there was one last for you, Daniela.
Exactly. And we will end this presentation with this painting by Nierhard. The artist made it specifically for our exhibition. And in a way, it's questioning ourselves, what do we see here and how do we interpret it? So when we looked at it for the first time, we thought, oh, God is burning. So it's a clear reference to the Shoah, but the artist sees it differently. He says that even in difficult times, it might be worthwhile to look for God. So wherever he might be, especially he's playing with the idea that we are constantly bombarded by images on our mobile phones. And this is a rather still withdrawn abstract painting in a way, because again, it plays with the color of white, referring to abstract or sublime ideas. And this is also a way we want to convey to you and our visitors that there is no final answer. We only give possibilities. We show possibilities from within the Jewish sources, tradition, and science. But of course, it's up to the individual to deal with these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Thank you very much. It was indeed a very rich and interesting presentation. So now I will open the floor for questions and comments for the audience. So please, if you have questions or comments, raise your hand. And so in the meantime, I have a question. For me, the most interesting part was this brain changes during prayer and meditation, and photogram of Andrew Newberg. And there were any other works in the exhibition displayed by this? Was he only? Maybe I just understand. He was also an artist, or only?
No, he's a neuroscientist working in the field of actual one, I would say, of the founders of neurotheology, a subgenre, so to speak, of neuroscience that started like 20 years ago or so, about the 2000. And he worked and studies with Buddhist monks and nuns, with Christian nuns, but also, so it's a general phenomenon. He's actually exploring the phenomenon of prayer and meditation and the effects it has on the brain, on our human brain. But of course, this image is because we address especially Judaism, but the movie we show, the video we show is general about what is activating and what happens. And it's interesting that it's the frontal lobe is activated during meditation prayer, that is usually very active when we are focusing on to solve a problem and to have a riddle. So when we are focusing on something. On the other side, at the same time, I forgot the name of this part, is also activated a part of the brain that gives us a feeling of oneness, of letting go. So you have a tension in one side, extremely focusing. On the other side, this letting go and this nirvana feeling, like one, being one, the oceanic feeling, as it is called by Freud, for example, that being one with the world. That's what they found out during these studies.
Interesting, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, please, Ernesto.
I'm very glad that I could be here now afternoon and could enjoy this great lesson. And it was I got very much ideas and I learned much. This was now. Yesterday, I dealt with the problem to repair a wall which is made of stones and bricks. And so I want to thank you for this idea and your deed to take also bricks in your hands.
Okay.
Of course, not in the name of the Almighty. But we understand each other. And this was today and yesterday, and before some weeks, I was so glad to meet the exhibition in the Jewish Museum in Vienna, and I will want to tell what you could not tell here or didn't want to tell, or it is not possible. That's the feeling and how it was to look the exhibition. It was like going into a door, and of course, at first, it begins a feeling like to be in theater, to connect to an or played world, and after between minutes or seconds, it changes, and it is like walking in your own dream. And the other extraordinary way is that you will not lost in this idle dream, because you always meet with other thoughts and ideas and solutions, and because of that, you don't sleep away. And so for me, it is unforgettable. This sphere. I was walking. It was wider. It was not only my dream. So I had to understand that I was moving in thoughts and dreams of more much people than only me and my brain and my fantastic thoughts. And to the last picture that we saw with a burning paper, I think my first opinion was that you can burn the paper, but the word you can't. Thank you so much for this exhibition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now, Miriam, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for introducing us to this exhibition. And actually, I'm continuing a little bit Ernesto's impressions, but I have more practical question. Do you have already any references or recordings of a reception? Like, what is the reception of the exhibition? And who is the audience so far? How many people are coming to see it? And what are the impressions of you as curators and of the audience as visitors?
So thank you for this question. The exhibition was very well received by the press and the audience. We as curators don't have the exact numbers, I have to say. Yeah. So we don't have the figures of the daily visitors. We have many school classes, of course, who visit, but also both Domagoj and we do guided tours with people who are more in a specialist field. So then there's a whole team of guides who do the tours for a more general audience. But we get many requests. It's booked out. We also heard from the bookshop that the catalog sells well, so we are happy about that. And thanks for all on the call who contributed to the wonderful catalog. So I think it's received very well. Yeah.
So
That's
the
my
press
understanding.
coverage was good, and
Yeah.
there were only positive reviews, actually.
I mean, what we can tell from a practical side is when we do tours, and also our head of education, Hannah Lanzmann, she does wonderful work, is that especially the 5 comparative objects from Christianity or Muslim culture, they draw in a lot of visitors because we, of course, split between the audience, between tourists and Viennese, a Viennese audience. And most of them might have some sort of Catholic background. We can also tell that the Baroque Eye of God we have included, especially in this exhibition, was one of the catchy pictures also for the press. Yeah. So we were also both on TV, on radio. So although we thought it's super difficult to convey our ideas, our thoughts, I think we somehow managed quite well. I hope.
So, yeah, we hope.
And do you plan some workshops like interreligious meeting? Do you plan some workshops like interreligious discussion?
I think Hannah does that partially in her activities with the kids. Because this is also something we see up on the 3rd floor in our museum. We have the visible storage, and especially with the amulets. Yeah, they often have Muslim symbols, for example. That's very, very helpful to draw kids in. And what we did, we have a kind of framework of events running as long as the duration of the exhibition. And the next one is on the 22nd of July. And we were lucky that we will have the honor to invite Jon Fosse, and he will read a short passage from A Shining, because we encountered in his huge oeuvre of writing, there are quite some parallels to Jewish mysticism. And it actually refers perfectly well, this is a spoiler actually, to Neerhod's painting. Yeah, it's the white and the dark lightening shining.
Thank you. Very impressive.
So do we have any other questions or comments? If not, I would like to thank Daniela and Domagoj again for this wonderful presentation. And this was actually our last presentation in this semester. So I don't know if More would like to say something.
Yes, I would like to say some words. So thank you again, Dr. Schmid and Akrap, for your wonderful presentation about the exhibition. It was really a pleasure to conclude our seminar this year with your thoughtful lecture. And as we close this year's seminar, I would like to thank especially Dr. Marianne Farkas for co-organizing so brilliantly the seminar, and to our colleagues, Dr. Tzvi Orgad, Dr. Lior Yacobi, Professor Ilya Rodov, and Professor Miriam Reiner, who all generously shared their knowledge and put in great effort behind the scene to make this seminar possible. Many thanks also to all our inspiring speakers all over the year, and to the students and our guests who took part and helped to create this space of learning and communication, and a very, very special and precious connection. This is very important, especially this time. Let's hope that next year we will meet in better time, with the war behind us and with the hostages back home. And I'm wishing you all a peaceful and meaningful summer. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
תודה.
תודה. Thank you.
תודה.
להתראות, שלום.
להתראות, שלום. שלום.
Thank you very much. Yeah, bye bye.
Bye bye.
ביי ביי.